Welcome in, whiskey freaks, to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your number one attitudinal bourbon destination. I'm John Stark, and I'll be bringing you candid and sometimes irreverent whiskey reviews, news, and opinions on the industry and the products they've been bringing us for hundreds of years. Today we investigate a burning question, literally. Can a Tesla double as a fire starter? Is it an eco-friendly marvel? Or just an overpriced Zippo lighter waiting to happen? Buckle up, whiskey freaks, because we're about to find out if Elon's brainchild is secretly the world's most expensive Roman candle. But yeah, no, we will not be doing that. Today, we focus on nothing but bourbony goodness, because I've got all kinds of things to throw your way today, including new releases from Old Forester, Machine Head, and Yellowstone. We've got a new world record bottle of Van Winkle sold at auction. And we learned that whiskey and guns don't mix. And finally, I review Benchmark full-proof straight bourbon whiskey from our good friends at Buffalo Trace. So here's the deal. Despite facing recent layoffs, a tariff war, and huge drops in the marketplace, Old Forester just launched something new. It's a bottled in bond rye whiskey. Now, it's part of their 117 series, which began back in 2021, and this rye is a first for Old Forester under the bottled in bond label. They say this mash bill is quite unique. It's got 65% rye, 20% malted barley, and 15% corn, and it creates what they say is a bold, spicy, fruity, and floral sweetness. Old Forester says the barrels for this release were filled in spring of 2015, which means this whiskey is likely around 10 years old. They mention tasting notes like honeysuckle, candied lemon. Yeah, this is weird. Candied lemon? Okay. Cracked pepper and baking spice. But here's the kicker. The 117 series bottled in bond rye from Old Forester is going to be available for you in the 375 milliliter bottle for $65. You can get it at the retail shop there in Louisville. You can get it online in certain states. And I'll bet you're going to expect high prices in the secondary if you can even find it. Now, Machine Head. You might know him. Okay, you might not know him. But if you do know him, you know him as the American heavy metal band that formed way back in 1991 in Oakland, California. Well, good news, kids. Machine Head has launched a new whiskey. And what's this fancy new whiskey called? Well, it's called Shotgun Blast Whiskey. And it's packaged in, you guessed it, bottles shaped like sawed-off shotguns. Because why the hell not, right? They say it's inspired by their 1994 song, Davidian. Okay, so hang on here. They named their brand new whiskey that comes in a sawed-off shotgun looking thing after that song. All right, folks, let me fill you in a little bit about the song Davidian by Machine Head. It's about the Waco, Texas siege. And what was that, you ask? And a lot of you were asking because some of you are not old enough to remember it. So it happened in 1993. It was a standoff between the Branch Davidians, which was some religious group led by David Koresh. And they had their standoff against the FBI and the ATF. Never a good idea. It didn't end well. It lasted 51 days. And, well, it ended in an inferno. Thank you, Janet Reno. It was a monstrously disastrous fire. It killed 76 of these religious folks, including the dude David Koresh. How about that? So, a little history lesson for you there. Who knew, right? Machine Head and history? Well, their whiskey is a blend of 11-year and 4-year aged bourbons, and it comes in at 94 proof. Their front man, Rob Flynn, he says the band's always embraced the drinking culture. I didn't know we were in a drinking culture, but okay. And he says it makes this release of whiskey a natural fit. Well, of course. The whiskey is now available in North America and European shipping coming soon. I'm not I wouldn't get too excited about that, Mr. Flynn. Maybe, maybe not, depending on this whole tariffs thing. Oh yeah. And you can get matching shot glasses that are shaped like shell casings. Well, isn't that special? So there's that, Machine Head. Okay, guys. A little more mainstream, we've got Yellowstone. They've just introduced a new permanent addition to its lineup. It's about time, right? They're calling it Small Batch 107. It's a 6-year-old bourbon, and interestingly, it's the first in the Yellowstone family to feature an age statement on the packaging. It's bottled at 107 proof, and it is one of the highest proof options in the Yellowstone collection. The bourbon is non-chill filtered. Clearly, I love that. It's going to give you a more depth of flavors, generally speaking. And the 107 proof and 6-year age statement are right there on the bottle. They say it's a nod to Yellowstone's heritage when it was bottled at 6 years old in the 1960s. And that was during a time when the brand was actually a top seller in Kentucky. So I guess that's why they're going back to the olden days. Master distiller Stephen Beam's goal with Small Batch 107, according to him, was to create bold bourbon with a clear age statement. Hallelujah, Mr. Beam. Small Batch 107 is available nationwide now, and it's got a suggested retail price of $44.99 for the 750 milliliter bottle. They say Small Batch 107 offers a bold flavor profile with notes of caramel, vanilla, oak, and honey. Sounds like a really good drinker. I don't know. Beam says that the higher proof brings out more flavors, and clearly by non-chill filtering, they created more of a full-bodied product. Makes perfect sense. Beam says the higher proof brings out more flavors, and by non-chill filtering, we created a much more full-bodied product than a lower proof chill filtered bourbon. Yada, 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 yada. It sounds fantastic to me, but I'm not sure it's going to live up to the hype, because I've had some hit or miss bottles of Yellowstone. I'm hoping with that 6-year age statement, that hefty 107 proof, that's right in my sweet spot there between 100 and 120-ish, 115. Clearly the non-chill filtering is awesome. That's not exactly a bold move, but it helps, I think, with a lot of us bourbon drinkers who like those extra flavors to come through. So I kind of expect it to pack a punch in terms of mouthfeel and richness. But this is most likely their own distillate now. So I'm cautiously optimistic. And first chance I get, I promise, I'm going to grab it. I'm going to see what it's all about, and I'm going to share it with you guys. So there's a whiskey glut. The whiskey market's in free fall. And there's all kinds of anxiety about the future of the industry. But hey, we just set a world record for bourbon. That's right, a rare bottle of Old Rip Van Winkle bourbon just set a new auction record for post-prohibition American whiskey. And it sold for a whopping $125,000. The auction was held by Sotheby's. They're a world-renowned high-end auction house. And this one-of-a-kind bottle, okay, it's got a crazy name. You're going to have to bear with me here. It's nuts. Here we go. It's called the 2007 Van Winkle Selection Kentucky Bourbon Festival Master Distiller's Auction Bottle. Okay, so it was originally bottled for charity, specifically the Oscar Getz Museum of Bourbon History in Kentucky. And that's the reason for the ridiculously long name here. They say it's a blend of 15 to 20-year-old whiskey, likely distilled at Stitzel-Weller and bottled at 125.6 proof. Super cool fun fact. Julian Van Winkle's son, Preston, he actually designed the homemade label for the charity event. And to me, that's probably what made this bad boy so special, really. Handmade bottle label, Van Winkle family involvement. It's just going to mean more dollars. They say the bottle's initial estimate was estimated to come in at about $50,000. So clearly it exceeded their expectations, and probably because of the rarity pushing it much higher. The sale shattered the previous record of $107,715, also for a Van Winkle bourbon. Other notable bottles sold at this auction included rare Macallan releases, Four Roses anniversary bottles, and a Michter's 20-year-old bourbon. Now, the next whiskey and whiskey auction at Sotheby starts on April 24th. If y'all want to check that out, I don't have any details on any of the featured bottles. That's still to come. All right, whiskey freaks, strap in for a wild one here. So a Pennsylvania police officer, former police officer, I must say, is facing charges for allegedly shooting a fellow hunter during a goose hunt last November. Now, I don't know why we're hearing about this now in March, but we are. This is a recent news story. So he shot his buddy, accidentally at least. You know, just your classic whiskey and firearms combo. What could possibly go wrong, right? This guy's name is, bear with me here, David Kawasmi, because it couldn't just be Smith, right? All right. So anyway, David Kawasmi, 30 years old, was charged with reckless endangerment and, well, shooting a guy. Authorities say he and his hunting buddies were knocking back whiskey just before the incident. Okay, the group was in their A-frame blind, taking aim at some geese when Kawasmi noticed a bird flying behind him, and naturally he shouted, "Rear!" and fired his gun. His shot landed right into the head of another hunter. First responders rushed the victim to the hospital. He had to have brain surgery. He made it, but he did spend time in critical condition. Oh, and he told investigators, this is great, this is amazing stuff here. He told investigators he had been uncomfortable with all the drinking and actually thought about leaving the hunt, but he didn't. So this is the classic example, kids, of just trusting your gut and your instincts, right? Now, Kawasmi, he was a police officer at the time, was being the key word here. He's since left the department, and now state lawmakers are debating whether he should get a lifetime hunting ban. Seems kind of like a no-brainer. See what I did there? You'd think accidentally shooting someone in the head, that would kind of automatically qualify you for no hunting, but I don't know. Kind of brings back memories from the good old days with Vice President Duck and Cover Dick Cheney, doesn't it? The former cop's attorney says no comment. And Kawasmi, he says no comment. Probably for the best, right? But hey, on a high note, Pennsylvania actually had its lowest number of hunting-related shootings in over a century last year. Only 13 incidents, and just one was fatal, so yay! Anyway, the moral of the story here, whiskey freaks, and no, it's not don't drink and hunt. The moral of the story is, if you're gonna hunt, hunt for whiskey, not with whiskey. All right, whiskey freaks, let's get to the fun part now, my review. Today I'm cracking open a bottle of Benchmark Full-Proof Straight Bourbon Whiskey. And as always, you're going to get 2 minutes of learning, and then we get to tasting. In this case, we defer to our good friends at Buffalo Trace. Now, Buffalo Trace's Benchmark lineup, it's an extension of their standard Benchmark Old No. 8 bourbon. And this lineup offers differing proofs. They're all budget friendly, and that's one of the reasons why I picked it. Well, actually, my wife picked this bottle up for me in Indiana. Anyway, it's one of the reasons why we're going to be tasting that today. Now, their full lineup, I'm going to start with the lowest, and I'm going to go up to the top. The lowest is Benchmark Old No. 8. It's their base bourbon in the series. It's 80 proof. Benchmark Top Floor is an 86 proofer. It's aged on the top floors of the rickhouse for more intense flavors, is what they say. Then we've got Benchmark Small Batch. It's 90 proof, and it's a blend from a select number of barrels for a more balanced profile. And next we've got Benchmark Bonded. Clearly, you know what that is. It's 100 proof. It's bottled in bond. It's aged at least 4 years in a single season under government supervision, yada, yada, yada. And I want to talk about being in Kentucky last week because this Benchmark Bonded, was able to grab a bottle of this stuff while I was down there just a few days ago. And I need to rant for just a second here. So I've mentioned, and actually I've talked a lot about Garrett County Distilling in Lancaster, Kentucky. You got to say it right. It's Garrett and it's Lancaster, right? We can go through that again. And I've been super excited about these cats since the distillery is literally 5 miles from where my wife was born and raised. My in-laws still live there, so I'm thinking, what could be sweeter than a distillery in their backyard when I visit Kentucky? It's cool enough. I get to go past in Lawrenceburg, past Four Roses and Wild Turkey, and then through Danville, and you've got Wilderness Trail. Anyway, so these folks at Garrett County Distilling, they just got added to the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. But guess who wasn't even open any of the 3 days I was in Kentucky last week? Yeah, you guessed it. Garrett County Distilling. Nothing on their social media about why they weren't open. I sent them direct messages. They wouldn't return the messages. I called them twice. Their phone number wouldn't go through when you call them. We drove up to the distillery and the gate was closed. And there was no one there to open it. Like I said, and I emailed them 2 days ago when I got home. I emailed them too. Still no reply. I don't know what the hell is going on at Garrett County Distilling. Now, I did manage a trip to the liquor barn, and I picked up a bottle of All Nations bourbon whiskey from Garrett County Distilling, but I wanted to get it at the distillery because I want to review it for all you guys, and I want to be able to talk about the distillery from my own personal perspective, not just pictures on the internet, right? So I have some advice for Garrett County Distilling. Get your shit together. Anyway, the 5th iteration of Benchmark is Benchmark Single Barrel. It comes in at 95 proof, and it's selected from individual barrels for unique characteristics. Okay, fair enough. And today, the one we're excited about today is Benchmark Full Proof. And this boy comes in at 125 proof. It's uncut, it's unfiltered, and they say it offers the most intense experience in the lineup. So, like I said, Benchmark Full Proof, it's their highest proof offering in the Benchmark bourbon lineup. And according to Buffalo Trace, the brand is named after the McAfee brothers. And this is such a weird story. It's named after the McAfee brothers who surveyed a site just north of Frankfort in the late 1700s. So kind of honors the history of the Buffalo Trace Distillery, sort of, in the land that it sits on, I guess. I don't know. It's kind of whatever works for you, right? So anyway, it comes in at 125 proof. The bourbon's denoted as full proof, and that's because of the fact that it's bottled at the same proof that the distillate entered the barrel at. So it's the difference between like cask strength and full proof. Anyway, we'll get into that another day. The age of Benchmark Full Proof, there is no age statement, but since it's labeled a straight bourbon, it should be at least 4 years old. The mash bill. Well, our good friends at Buffalo Trace are a little bit sneaky. We do know that it's mash bill number 1, but the specific composition is undisclosed. Rumor has it, it's a low rye mash bill. So we'll go with that because, I'm sure that's absolutely perfectly right. We do know that other bourbons that are born to this particular mash bill are things like the base model Buffalo Trace, Old Carter, E.H. Taylor, George T. Stagg, and Eagle Rare. They are all born from this low rye mash bill. The proof. Already talked about the proof. It's 125, and that matches the barrel entry proof. Now the price point. This is the, I would say, pretty interesting part of the puzzle here. 125 proof, at least 4 years old, and this bad boy comes in at $24, and that's exactly what I paid for it in Kentucky. But I've also seen it here in Illinois on a regular basis for right about that as well. So if you can get it for anywhere near $24, that's about what you should pay for it. Now today I'm tasting with a Glencairn, my favorite limestone branch Glencairn actually, and I'm going to crack this bottle open. Okay, I'm not really going to crack it open. When I say crack it open, I mean screw off the metal cap. So there's nothing fancy going on here, kids. Like I said, this is a budget bottle. This is a budget-friendly bourbon. Okay. All right. So it's in my Glencairn now. As I've mentioned before, this is like CIA headquarters down here. I have plenty of light, and I want to talk about the color of this bourbon. I always mention this. Don't judge the color by what it looks like in the bottle. And this bottle is especially like that. The label wraps around this thing quite a bit. You're not going to get a good look at the color through the bottle. So pour it in your glass. And I always say, in my opinion, the darker hue the whiskey is in your glass, the deeper the flavors are going to be. It's not always the case, but it is sometimes. It is most of the time, honestly. So it's worth noting, and I'm going to say it every time, guys. This stuff has a nice color in my Glencairn. Not a ton of legs going on here. Let me swirl it just a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, I'd say medium legs. Whew, you can almost see the alcohol wafting out of the glass. It's 125, and brother, it is punching me in the nose right now. Yeah, let me swirl it just a little bit more here and see how that alcohol disperses. Getting maybe a lemony or a citrusy note here. Maybe a tinge of that kind of citrus. But brown sugar for sure. Vanilla. More brown sugar. There might be some caramel in here too rolling around as I swirl this around in the Glencairn. Yeah. So my first thoughts here. Minus the proof kind of blowing my way. And it's not bad. Right off the bat, I'm getting all the things you think of when you want to nose a bourbon. You know, it's bourbon. And there's nothing crazy going on here. This is, I don't have any other way to describe it. It's bourbon. Let me get into this one real quick and get a sip. Alrighty. Wow, that is a decent mouthfeel. And yeah, there's some vanilla in here too. But dang, that brown sugar. It's kind of like a brown sugar bomb. Like, look at me, I'm brown sugar. There's a lame Rolling Stones reference in here. I'm just going to stroll on past that. You're welcome. All right, wait. Hang on just a sec. Let me get another sip real quick. Okay, that alcohol I got on the nose, it's here, but it's not nearly as intense as I thought it would be. I mean, yeah, there's a bit of a stringency here, but stringency, that's a word, but not in an unpleasant level. And I'm getting some oaky tannins here too, probably because it's full proof, but they're not off-putting. Let me get another sip. Yeah, so it's interesting. It's going straight from that hint of vanilla and that super brown sugary goodness I got. So like a leather and a chocolate on the back end. It kind of jumps right through the middle from the front end to the back. And now here we are, and that's different. Not a lot of mid-palate going on here for me. I need one more sip here, guys. I am definitely feeling the proof on the throat and in my chest, but again, it's not in an unbearable or an unpleasant way. And I'm pretty sure I'm even picking up a little bit of barrel char at this stage of my sip. It's very nice. So I've got some thoughts on this one, kids. And speaking of thoughts, yeah, brace yourself, because I don't know if you can tell, but I'm in rant mode today. You ever listen to the other guys and hear them brag about how they're tasting their 27th whiskey today? Yeah, we just been tasting all day long. Yeah, so they've been at it for hours recording a dozen episodes, right? And now, after the other 27 whiskeys, they're going to give you a fair and honest and accurate review on whatever the hell's next in their lineup. And to me, that kind of sounds crazy. Look, there's no way after that much tasting, you're going to have the receptors and the taste buds, functioning taste buds, to give even a half-ass review. So, for the record, this is my only tasting today. I've got clear eyes and a full heart and a full glass of benchmark full proof. And that's going to be it, kids. I want to give you a fair review. And that's what I promise to do every time. So what do I think about this Benchmark Foolproof? So what's the verdict? Well, I'll have the verdict right after the money spot. Are you looking to update your bar or man cave with some great photographs or wall art? Head over to Etsy at famousdocs.etsy.com and pick up some fantastic Prohibition, whiskey, and gangster-related photographs and wall art. Okay, you got to check this stuff out, guys. They've got things like photos of Al Capone and John Dillinger, Bonnie and Clyde, all kinds of cool photos over there. And if you purchase 4 or more items, you'll get 20% off your entire order for a limited time. That's famousdocs.etsy.com. famousdocs.etsy.com. And that link will be in the show notes. So if you listen to the Blind Tasting Podcast, you know there are 3 verdict options. Are we going to keep it? Are we going to collect it? Or are we going to cull it? To keep it means to proudly display it in your liquor cabinet or bar. This stuff is good for a pour anytime, but there's really no need to stock up on it since it's always available. Collect it. Grab another bottle or maybe 2 since you find it so darn delicious, or it just may not be easy to get your hands on. And lastly, cull it. Use it to loosen rusty bolts or sanitize a dirty toilet. In the case of Benchmark Foolproof Straight Bourbon Whiskey, I say collect it. So wow, guys, 24 whole doll hairs for a 125 proof beast. It's really not a financial decision here, kids. This is a no-brainer. This thing's packed with character, starting with that brown sugar at the front all the way to just that little bit of barrel char on the finish. Basically, it just punches way above its weight. Now, I'm wondering, thinking to myself, could the price drop? Well, in this environment, this crazy whiskey world we're in, it might. But are we really going to lose sleep over an extra $1 or $2? Just grab a couple bottles, pass them around, and if you kill the bottle in a day or 2, guess what? Who cares? Even the wife can't complain about this one, guys. And basically, at this price, you're practically saving money. And sidebar here. I've got a handful of Baker's chocolates here in my hot little hands. I've mentioned them before. Baker's, they're out of Nebraska, and they make these chocolate meltaways. They're about the shape and size of a Jolly Rancher, but thankfully, they are not a Jolly Rancher. They are chocolate. And I'm particularly addicted to the dark chocolate ones, like this one here. Let me do this real quick. I want to see, and I suspect it's going to be nice. I've often paired these dark chocolates with other whiskeys. Not every whiskey, right? If I'm drinking like a Rebel Cask Strength or Four Roses Small Batch Select, I don't typically pull one of these out, right? But sometimes I get the feeling something like this 125 proofer, it's going to go well. So I want to see how a dark chocolate candy matches up with this foolproof. I'm just going to get a little nibble off the chocolate. And I'm not going to like swirl the whiskey around in my mouth with the chocolate. It's just something you pair while you kind of snack while you sip. And that's just the way I do it. You do it your way. Oh, and real quick, before I get any further, I want to mention, when you're tasting, you should have a notebook. Okay, I'm not going to say you should have a notebook, but yeah, you should. You should have a notebook. When I do tastings, whether it be at a distillery or whether I'm tasting at the house, or whether I'm at a bar or I'm at our bourbon club, I always like to make notes. And then I'm a geek, I'm a nerd, I'm a whiskey freak, right? I put this stuff in a Microsoft file. I use a Word doc because you can search it. Some people use an Excel spreadsheet. I know that's crazy, right? But I make notes because I may be tasting something like this Benchmark Foolproof today, and then in a year and a half, I might taste it again. Sometimes I want to compare notes and see where I was in my bourbon or whiskey journey, right? Compared to now. And I found there are times I had a George Ramus barrel pick that we did a couple years ago. And then I pulled that back out, 6 months ago, and I didn't love it. So I don't know if something happened in the bottle or if it's something my palate has changed or what. But sometimes it's interesting and fun to compare notes, and you have to take notes to compare them. So I'd say get you a little notebook. You can buy them for 50 cents at Walmart and make some notes. And then if you're a whiskey freak like me, you're going to put it in a Word doc or an Excel spreadsheet. But at any rate, so back to my candies here. They sell these little candies by the pound for like $15, which honestly, it's a bargain at twice the price. They got everything from like minty chocolate to mocha to dark chocolate, milk chocolate, orange chocolate, all kinds of crazy flavors that in many cases would pair well, and then in some cases maybe wouldn't pair well. But I found that the slight bitterness of this particular dark chocolate one, to me, it kind of balances a bourbon sweetness while also enhancing like the caramel and the oak notes. So anyway, get you some Bakers. They're not a sponsor of the pod. I just love them. You should go on to Al Gore's amazing internet and you should buy some right away, like now.
Do it.
So back to Benchmark Foolproof, and I'm going to get a sip here. That chocolate that I had in my mouth has mostly moved on. Yeah, very pleasant. It's a perfect pairing, this dark chocolate with this Foolproof. So, highly recommend that. Now, is this Benchmark Foolproof a symphony in your mouth? Well, I wouldn't say it's a symphony in your mouth, but it's better than, say, Glorilla. Google it, Glorilla St. Louis. They had a massive fight at this concert. Anyway, it's better than Glorilla, but it's slightly less than, say, maybe Kiss on their 14th farewell tour. But I think you'll like it. And remember, guys, like always, I'm here trying to find those bottles you can afford. But just as important as being able to afford them, you have to actually be able to find them. This one here, this Foolproof Benchmark, it's your bottle. Benchmark Foolproof Straight Bourbon Whiskey from our good friends at Buffalo Trace. All right, whiskey freaks, let's be real. This podcast ain't free to make. And my wife, well, she's got questions about where all the money's going. So if you've ever enjoyed an episode here on the Blind Tasting Podcast and thought, man, this guy deserves a drink, well, now here's your chance. Head over to buymeacoffee.com/blindtastingpodcast. Toss a few bucks in the tip jar. It'll keep the podcast rolling, and it helps me prove to my wife that somebody out there thinks this was a good idea. Thanks for the support, whiskey freaks. That's buymeacoffee.com/blindtastingpodcast. Just $1 or $2 if you love what you're hearing. So appreciated, guys. Cheers to all of you. Last but not least, I got to give a shout out to the farmers, distillery production guys and gals, the warehouse workers, the bottlers, and the truck drivers. They're really the ones that make it happen, kids. So cheers to all of them. Well, that's all I got for today, whiskey freaks. Thanks for listening to the Blind Tasting Podcast, your #1 attitudinal bourbon destination.